On the cutting edge of anomaly research, you are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, E.W. Gannett.
Well, hi there. Welcome into the lodge. Make yourself comfortable because this is a place where unconventional weirdos, but nice people, meet to discuss things that those in control over us would rather we didn't. And it is an X3D channel. If you're new, you must learn X3D viewing before you can see what we have to offer. It won't make any sense otherwise. So easy. We have age ranges from grannies to little children who've learned X3D. And join us each week as we open, so to speak, a magic window onto the surface of Mars, and where we observe non-fractal anomalies. Now, all that means is that non-fractal is a mathematics of intelligent agency. And so, if you've learned all that, get ready for another adventure. Meanwhile, there will not be a live hang next week because I'm going to be out on the road. I'll be gone all next week. So no live hang, no episode. Sorry about that. I'm going to miss it because I love hanging out with you guys. But you know, I'll be back for the live hang on Tuesday the 27th. And the next episode will be on Friday, April 30th. I hope. You never know what can happen in just a short time. But that's why this episode is going to be a little bit longer than usual to maybe tide you over a bit. May I remind you, before we dive into this, about MarsFam.net? This is a place, a forum, put together by my friend, Jimmy Roberts, and features not only him, but Chris Maroney, Neil Spence, and myself. And it's a forum where the adults can have a conversation. It's growing rapidly. We're just getting it off the ground. We encourage you to stop by and join the conversation. We have just as much fun there as we do in our live hangs, so please come on by. Anyway, a lot of very interesting things to see this week, so I'm going to quit talking and we're going to jump into it. I love the film noir look of Nev's Chem G-Max. They add a further element of mystery to an already mysterious situation. You need to click on the link below because the entire Hilltop shown in this GMAC is completely covered with anomalies. I've picked out just a few to share with you. Every large item in this picture is anomalous in one form or another. But just to be sure you know what I'm talking about, let me cycle through some highlighting to make it clear. Just let your eyes linger a bit on each one of these items, and I think you'll see what I mean. As ancient as these artifacts are, it's sometimes difficult to tell if they're carved from rock or are simply corroded technology. Whatever the case, I truly believe these are not natural. A bit further to the right are these two items, worth another look. You know, the curves, that hollowed out square basin in the back, and that cone-like structure on the right really raise a lot of questions in my mind. If your viewing screen is large enough, you'll be able to make out what might be letters or figures running down the center line of the cone. And in the top left background, you can see a nice, neat pyramid just sitting on the ground. That one goes into the sample bag for sure. Then there's that piece I'm calling a curling stone, even though that's not at all likely to be the case. Y'all have heard about that weird sport in Canada called curling? That's where they shove this specially shaped and polished rock around on the ice, sweeping in front of it to help it go as far as it can when the stone is in motion. That handle is for tossing it down the ice, and that's why this one reminded me of a curling stone, because of that handle. Of course, I'm sure a square curling stone wouldn't do anyone any good, but maybe the rules are different on Mars. I think it'd be a good idea to have a Canadian on the first manned mission for just that reason. Here's another cluster of craziness right nearby. Rather than trying to explain everything I'm seeing here, why don't you just let your eyes relax into the picture and take note of all the shapes, cutouts, and other strangeness that fills this picture. And for our very last stop on this little hilltop, hey, that rhymes. I can be a poet at times. I must have the right enzymes to explore these new paradigms. Anyway, there's a small piece hiding out behind that large stone in the center. That sure looks purposeful to me. And that little cube attached to it with the knob on the top left corner, isn't that worth considering this chunk of something as an artifact? This GMAC by Nev is so large that I had to break it in two to get the context views all the way in. See what I mean? This is a screen cap from the actual GMAC. So this is exactly what you'll see if you click the link below, except obviously it won't be in 3D. There are a couple of things I wanted to share with you from this Percy stitch-up. Let's start with a simple one. I really like this pristine rectangular block with a perfectly square end just tucked away inside a protective circle of stones. It's odd how some things stack up in a cataclysm, isn't it? Then there's this perfect little hole drilled into the top center of this cube. It's obvious the cube has gone through a lot in its day, but it's still recognizable as a cube. What about this bit of strange erosion? It kind of looks like a fat little flying saucer that crashed. Or maybe it's what one of our viewers mentioned during our preview party, which, by the way, is every Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, except this next Tuesday night, the 20th, because I'll be out on the road. He said it reminded him of a hubcap off a Lincoln town car. Now that's kind of a fat hubcap, but of course they would build Lincolns differently on Mars, wouldn't they? When I saw the sunlight reflecting off this one, it seemed to either be a carving or something made out of metal. Let's zoom right in and have a closer look. What do you think? Is it a carving, a mechanical piece, or, for the most unimaginative among you, a rock? Here's a shot from Percy's Navcam, a GMAC from my friend Neil Spence. Notice how they're not bothering to hide the blue sky on Mars anymore? I'm calling this a half pipe, but of course it's not a pipe at all. It looks more like the top of a treasure chest on its back. Whatever it is, can we agree it's too perfectly made to be natural? The SuperCam is giving us some pretty good stuff lately, even though there seems to be prismatic haloing in the images, like the lens was knocked out of whack or the glass itself was ground or optically coated improperly. We're interested in that group of rocks on the upper right. Just at first glance, most of you will be able to see the strangeness in this image. I really like this block right here. It's got all the non-fractals nailed. It has that parallel piece that seems to be attached over on the right. And those knobs give it a purposeful look. If it were a bit more clear, we might be able to make out those marks on the surface. But for now, we'll just leave them right there. And this one in back is pretty interesting. Besides the multiple sharp right angles, it's got that rectangular cutout on the front edge, filled with either carving or possibly something else that doesn't belong either in or on a natural rock. And that lower corner looks like it's been carved out, complete with more right angles. If you look carefully near the top of the left edge, you can see another notch that's been carved out. I sure wish we could see the other side. And this last piece over on the right caught my eye for a couple of reasons. First of all, look at the even thickness from top to bottom. Notice also that it's bilaterally symmetrical. It even comes to a nice even chisel point and appears to continue beneath the sand. Wouldn't you love to know what all these things were created for? The SuperCam, it's like the ChemCam on Curiosity. It takes images with a round mask, which makes it a bit problematic when all the images are stitched together like they are here. You end up with something that's really tough to crop for a good context view. So I've just incorporated the mask into the stereo view, and I hope you don't mind. That chunk on the left is where we're headed. The first thing I thought of when I found this was that it was the remains of some mysterious Martian mollusk. That brings to mind the many seashells that Sir Charles Schultz III, the British astronomer, brought to the public's attention from the Viking landers in the late 90s. While he remains a somewhat controversial figure, his many stereo images from NASA seem to show structures which could certainly be seashells. And with Mars having been an ocean planet at one time, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? This wavy pattern reminded me of the giant clam so often depicted as a deadly hazard waiting to trap unsuspecting divers. I'm assuming you can see the similarity here. Could this shape occur naturally in a mineral? Well, frankly, I don't know, but it doesn't seem likely. Regardless, this is another one I'd pop into my samples bag and take back to base for further study. The anomaly, not our endangered diver. This panorama is so wide that it might pose a problem to some of you. You might have to cross your eyes a little more than usual, or just simply back off from the screen another foot or so, and it should lock in right away. Look how pristine and razor sharp this image is. And this from our crummy little toy rover called Pathfinder, and the other rover it deployed, Sojourner. The whole package lasted only 85 days. And remember, back on July 4th, 1997, when it landed, you were lucky to find a digital camera that went as high as 1 megapixel. So, riddle me this, Batman. Why are these images from Pathfinder superior to all the subsequent rovers, including Percy? Quite a mystery. Anyway, take a look at that near invisible black dot inside the green target. That's the famous Sphinx we're going to take a look at. This first one is from a couple of years ago, and it's not too bad since all I could find were the low-res images. This next rendering is by Dale Rogers, using the recently released high-res stereo views by Dr. Timothy Parker over at JPL. It's definitely a bit better, but still pretty blurry. Now bear in mind, though, the extreme distance of this structure. I invite any of you with processing skills to go to the link and see what you can do with it. Of course, there are a ton of anomalies in this same view of the rock garden. Here's one Dale picked out inside the green target that he calls a mini barn. I know it's blurry, but you can still make out the shape, the markings, and what might be kind of a mouse hole door in the front. Is it a dwelling? What gets me are those symmetrical white lines marking the front. And this last one is my rendering of the new stereo panorama. Let's do an inventory, shall we? Starting on the left, this rectangular structure appears to be in 3 sections, each of the sunlit roof sections having a bit of an upward curve and darker lines between them. Under those sunlit portions on the front wall, darker spots or lines that could possibly be windows. At ground level on the left, a small archway. Then there's that large archway in the middle. And see how the light is reflected just above it? That tells us there's something sticking out into the sunlight, some kind of domed covering or something else extending out from the wall's vertical surface. And see immediately to the right of the archway a piece of the wall lit up by the sun? That tells me there's a flying buttress or some other support structure out away from the wall a bit, but still attached to it. Apparently, this rectangular structure joins to the pyramid on the right. I don't know why so many people bend themselves into pretzels trying to call this anything but a pyramid. But I don't care for pretzels myself, and that there, folks, is a pyramid. And sticking out near the top appears to be what might be a face. You can see what might be eyes on it, but there's just not enough detail to say for certain. And bear in mind, this image is the first and clearest we've ever gotten back from Mars. Is it any wonder NASA scrambled to take all subsequent images and add that ugly red-brown dust cover before issuing them as low-res JPEGs? And ask yourself again, before we leave this one, Percy has state-of-the-art 4K color stereo cameras. So, why is the panorama this shot is taken from so superior to anything Percy has yet shared? I think you know why. Well, that wraps it up for now, and I hope that there's enough here to keep you thinking for the next couple of weeks. By now, you know about our Patreon and PayPal links to keep this channel ad-free. My sincere gratitude goes out to all of our patrons and our contributors. Thank you for your generous support. Meanwhile, if you saw something you liked, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. It helps me to know whether to continue this work. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and click on the bell. Our next live hang is scheduled for Tuesday, April 27th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And I look forward to talking with each of you then. Until then, this is your buddy Dave, over at Mars X3D. Be well.